Hey, it's Ben's from LaunchFlows. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use our LaunchFlows target triggers. We provide you up to 5 target triggers that allow you to remotely trigger any tab widget or accordion widget or toggle widget without having to actually touch the tab or toggle elements themselves. Now, this is really handy if you want to set up a custom multi-step checkout, because while it may be easier and in most cases the best choice to have somebody click for step 1, click for step 2 right on the toggle or tabs themselves, sometimes you want to have a remote trigger button. Most often the trigger button will be put inside of the content itself so that when you go from step 1 to step 2, a different button will appear. Setting these up is very easy, but first let me demonstrate. When you click the various remote triggers, it acts just like it would for the main one. The setup has 3 parts to it. First thing you want to do is to drag some element that has tabs or toggles or accordions in it. That's simple enough with any of the options in Elementor default or Pro or any of the add-ons. Next is you want to have a clickable element. The most easy way to do this is to choose something like a button. Here I've set up a section with 2 columns, each one having a unique button. Now, the first thing we want to do is assign one of the 5 targets to the CSS ID of each button. To do that, we select the button or the other clickable element. We go into the Advanced tab. There we will find the CSS ID, where we will put in either LF-target1, LF-target2, LF-target3, LF-target4, or LF-target5. That says which of the 5 on a per page or per layout basis I'm assigning to this button. Next is we want to find out what is the unique ID of the tab or toggle that we want to trigger. For that, we'll go to the front end and we'll use the inspector tool that's available inside of any modern browser. Here I have Chrome, but this works fine for Firefox and Safari as well. Right-click and go to the elements. Then you'll use the inspector tool to highlight the tab itself, not the content, but the tab itself. Here you'll see typically a division, ID, and then the ID is itself what we're looking for. Here it's Elementor-tab-title-1831. You would right-click and copy. Then what we want to do is go back to our button and go to the Content tab. There, what we want to do is assign the button ID that particular ID that we just copied. This is what essentially connects this button to that tab. What we want to then do is click Update and Save. You're essentially done now. This can be repeated for any other tabs you create as well. Obviously, once the button is created, you can call it anything you want. Something continue to checkout. Style it and do all the other things you would normally want to do, including color, typography, and so forth. Next is we can go ahead and see how this works by going to Update. And when we refresh the page, we'll have the newly styled button functioning as we had anticipated. That would take us on to the next step. Now, what we want to do also is make sure that we have put these things where they should be. So one example I just mentioned is that although it's nice to have the buttons out in the open, sometimes it's better to put the buttons inside of the tab content itself so that when you switch from one to the other, the buttons disappear or reveal themselves. To do that is a little trick inside of Elementor, which seems strange, but it's actually quite simple. You want to take the buttons and you add a new section in your layout temporarily. This section is then going to be a container into which we will drag the buttons. The reason we do this is because now what we want to do is right-click and save this as a template. And I'm going to call this Continue to Checkout button. When I save this, it will now be available to me in Elementor Pro, or if I use Anywhere Elementor, as an element that I can drop into my layout here. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. When I go to my dashboard where I have Elementor Pro, I can go to the Templates, Save Templates area, and there I will find the new Continue to Checkout button is available. What I want to do with Elementor Pro, or use the syntax of a free plugin Anywhere Elementor, is copy that shortcode. Then I'm going to go back to my original layout And then inside of the tabbed content itself, I will click and I will put the new button as a short code. Make sure if you add this button twice that you remove the original instance. So I'm going to delete the one outside and leave the one inside. Now when I update and go back to the main page, we'll see that the continue to checkout button is part of the first tabbed content. That's useful because what we're going to do is make sure that when you click this, instead of pointing to tab 1, it actually points to tab 2. So let's modify that behavior by inspecting tab 2. Using the inspector tool, we see that the ID, let me do that slower. We see that the ID is Elementor tab title 1832. So what we can do is modify this particular shortcode inside of what we just created. Let's go back, edit with Elementor, because remember we're using this as a template, and we'll change that button link now so that it's going to tab 2. So we click on this, and remember we go to the button ID over in the content. We're going to change this to 1832. When we update it, and then go back to our layout, we'll see that this continue to checkout button will now be useful to reveal what's in the second tab. And here we go. And now we're ready. What I would probably do with this is I would take the LF billing fields and put them here, and then I would do the checkout and payment fields here. Let's finish up this tutorial by showing you how to do that. Here I've got some of the components from above. I'm going to borrow them. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to copy it and then delete the original. And I'm going to paste that into tab 1. This would be something that would be like the, let me have your billing information first. And that did not go well. So let me go ahead and just type it in manually. LF billing. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the payment shortcode, copy, and I'm going to paste that into tab 2. That would be comparable to the checkout fields or the checkout payment information that I would normally do. And again, that didn't work out so well with my copy paste. So I'll just say LF payment. Let me make sure that I've deleted the duplicate up here. And just by way of example, let's see what we end up with. What we should have now is that the tab 1 will contain the billing info, and that would be the thing that somebody goes to first as part of a two-step checkout. And let's refresh the page. Okay, so now we got the billing info, and instead of clicking this tab manually, instead what we could do is just click the button. And here I would have the payment methods such as Stripe or PayPal, or in this case COD. But this gives us the ability to have somebody use the alternative continue to checkout button. Now, if you wanted to, you could also put a similar button in this to allow them to go backwards, but I think that would be a conflict because what you're going to have instead will be the checkout button. So let's finish up our design by actually getting rid of the rest of these components. And finally, let's go ahead and see how that looks. Okay, everything functioning as it should once we refresh the page. Terrific. And now let's change the tab titles. So we'll have billing info, and then tab number 2 will say pay and checkout. And you could put any of the other LaunchFlow shortcodes inside of here without any trouble. Just remember, the trick to putting the buttons in place is that if it's a button or a clickable element, you need to actually create a section, save the section as a template, and then bring the template shortcode back into the tabbed area. Some other widgets that are accordions may actually allow you to use global widgets directly, but if not, you can use this method. And here's our final result. Let's do a refresh one more time. Okay, so I always have to refresh. By the way, this is not unusual. This is just my browser during the course of doing the video. I have to refresh the cache because the JavaScript of the recording. So when you normally do this, there won't be that revealing of anything. So here's what we've got. We've now got our 2-step checkout, which again could be 3, 4, 5 steps, whatever you want. Billing info, alternative to clicking this button tab at the top. Instead, I can just do continue to checkout. Here's where I have my checkout payment information for somebody to fill out, and we're good to go. That is the LaunchFlows target option. This is in version 1.2.0. See you on the next video.